Alright y'all, it's your boy Josh, and in this video we're going to be talking about ADHD and running a business with ADHD. At least what it's taught me and my experience, because some of y'all might have ADHD and want to work as an entrepreneur and create things and do all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm telling you right now, if that's you and you got ADHD, or someone told you got ADD, or you got just in general trouble focusing, then I'm gonna try and help you out, because I know a lot of y'all may not be doing the best in school and might be looking for alternatives in life. So let's begin. The first thing I want to clear up is ADHD and ADD are pretty much synonymous, and I believe the ADD reference is dated, and the ADHD is pretty much you either are lacking in attention or in behavioral control, or you got both. And in my case, I believe it was pretty much both. So there's ADHD that's focuses, that your main issue is you have trouble focusing, and then there's another version of ADHD where your main issue is spontaneity, hyperactiveness, right? And in my case, I had a bit of both. And I think I'm more on the attention side. When I was younger, I was more on the hyperactive side. And I think, every kid's hyper, right? But in my case, I think it was pretty profound. Looking back and from what I've heard from parents and people who were around me when I was younger, I was a rowdy kid. So I had the spontaneity part too. But one of the things that I wanted to really focus on is what it kind of taught me, and how it's affected my character, especially in the entrepreneurship world. So let's begin. The erste Sache. And so when I was, pretty little, I always had problems completing what I started, and that's a pretty common issue or theme that reoccurs with people that have ADHD. It's you start all these cool projects, you're like, oh, bet I'm going to do this and that, but you never finish anything. For me, it was always, I never really read that many books when I was little. I know some kids nowadays, no one really reads books, or at least kids, I don't see them reading books because they're just glued to their phones and iPads and all that. But when I was little, books were still kind of transforming from books to digital books. So kids were still reading books when I was little, and then there were kids that just didn't care to read books. I was the kid who just never cared to read books. And I think that's just because I had trouble learning and processing language, I think, for some reason. And so I was afraid of reading because I would always get things wrong. I was very bad with English grammar. So I was like, damn, I'm not going to pick up a book, I don't want to be feeling even worse about myself. And another thing that was more in my experience was I always had these cool ideas of starting these cool projects with Legos and toy soldiers and stuff like this. And I'm going back, by the way, when I was 5, 8, 9 years old, right? When I was a little boy, right? And I never finished them. There was a couple of projects, obviously, I finished, but most of the projects I started, I never finished. So that led to a lot of insecurity. And the reason why it's important and why it's a big theme is because that insecurity led to my pretty much, I think, what I would always say and call it is social anxiety. It led to my social anxiety, in which I was afraid to socialize with people because I felt like I was worthless. I didn't accomplish most of the things that I started. I never, quote-unquote, finished them, as one might say. I was just starting things left and right and never finished anything. People would be like, why don't you just finish what you started? And I would always wonder, why don't I do that? And it's because, this head that I have, the brain that I got, is telling me, nah, you ain't about it. No, we can't finish. We can start, can't finish. And so when I was in high school, I read my first book cover to cover, and that was a big deal to me. That was damn, I finished something, you feel me? I finished that. I started from page 1, I ended on the last page, and I felt really good about that. So I started reading more and more and more, right? And that's on the social anxiety side of things. On the actual literal attention side of things, and hyperactiveness, I've always been a very spontaneous kind of person. I think anyone that knows me would say that like literally whenever I go to link or like meet with people and they're like, oh, do you want to do this as a joke? Like, oh, let's go really far away or let's just do this activity right now. I'm always like, yeah, let's do it. Like let's just go, let's do it. I'm always like moving about and trying to be like doing different things at once because I'm pretty impulsive and spontaneous when it comes to that. And that's been a great benefit, and that's also been a great drawback for me. And so, when it comes on to the attention side of things, like I said, I never really finished what I started because I would lose my focus. I would go on a completely different tangent and a different train of thought. So, homeworks, exams. I was on a medication called Focalin for some time. I personally don't want to talk about whether you should use drugs and which ones, whatever. I don't care. It's none of my business. I'm not a health professional. Don't listen to me on that. But I just personally didn't want to take it anymore because for me, it didn't make me feel good. And I thought there were other ways that I could handle what I was born with and what I'm living with. So that's just my opinion and how I chose to live my life. And so I stopped taking Focalin. And the reason why I stopped was just because it made me feel even more anxious because I at least felt like it was just emphasizing my current attention. So if my attention was on something negative, it would just make me much more negative and feel much more crummy and just not so happy. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped. And also, the big thing that I want to talk about is, and I have some notes over here, is, what I did to actually manage the social anxiety part or manage the ADHD part, because the root cause of most of it was I was given this condition neurologically. I don't know why. I don't know what it really, where it comes from because, I don't actually know my birth parents, really. So, I'm adopted, so, don't really got no one that I can pinpoint and be like, oh yeah, no, I came from my father's side and this is how he or my mother, whoever handled it. So how did I handle it? Well, what I did was I basically started to discipline myself to do things. Now, this is my theory on why later in life people with ADHD might have a bit of difficulty completing tasks and having self-esteem. Because when you complete a task, you reap the rewards of the dopamine when you are done with something. So for instance, if you started building a bookshelf, right? And say you finish it completely. Now you see that product. You accomplished a task. And your brain will reward you with that by, feeling proud of yourself, feeling good, and it gives you that dopamine and it gives you that rush. Whereas if you are, for instance, having trouble your whole life finishing what you start, not necessarily due to laziness. People with ADHD I don't think are really lazy. It's just they genuinely don't have the right kind of tools in society, and they have this thing, this condition where it's more difficult for them. So when you finish a task, you feel good, and when you don't finish a task, you feel bummy. And when you don't finish a lot of tasks, then you just feel bummier altogether. Because for me at least, I was noticing I was doing so many different things, and then at the end of the day, I just feel bummy about so many different things. You feel me? So what I started to do was I started to discipline myself to just do a few things a day. Just a couple of small tasks. If I could get those done, I would feel good. So one of the things that in my day-to-day life, in my work life, that I do is the moment I start losing focus, writing up an email or writing out a proposal or trying to do this on a site or whatever, I take a break and I do something completely different. And I do things that try and get my blood going just so I can start feeling physically good, because at the end of the day, all right, I might be broke if I lose all my clients, but at least I'll feel good, right? At least I'll feel like $1 million. So, just literally, I'll drop down on the floor, do 100 of these, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, whatever you want to do, just exercise the body. And what I started to do is I found the times that I had the most energy. I'm a morning person, So I get up at around 5:30, 5:45 in the morning, and I start work at around 6. I'm usually done with most of the heavy lifting at around 10. Then I just do some smaller work here and there, and then I go hang out with friends, read books, watch YouTube videos, whatever. I kind of I'm done with my day. But what I wanted to emphasize is develop these systems that are going to work for you. And if it doesn't work, don't worry. Like, you will fail. Don't worry. Like, you're going to make mistakes, and then that's the point of having, a consistent routine, is that you adjust accordingly. And if you can give yourself small boosts of dopamine and be like, oh, I accomplished this today. Get a calendar. Start checking off days that you've done a habit, right? Whether it's going out for a walk, reading a book, or, calling some leads from like a sales list, a leads sheet or whatever it is. Just do things that are going to, if you can at the end of the day have a small scale, say, yep, I've done these at least 5 things, every single day. For me, it's actually 4 things. It's I meditate. I want to meditate every day. I go for either a run or do some sort of exercise. I read, and I take a cold shower. So those are 4 things that I do every single day that I try and get done. And even if I only get one of them done, at least that's one more thing than if I had done nothing. So I hope this video helps you out if you're running a business. And the reason why this applies more towards business, I think, is just because, if you're an entrepreneur at least, you're self-starting and you have no structure. So it's really difficult to kind of tell yourself what to do. So that's kind of why I'm tying this all to entrepreneurship and business. So if you guys like this video and if you want more of these videos, definitely let me know. I'm more than happy to make them. And with that being said, I wish you all good luck.